We're in championship rounds of the NFL season. My Packers have made it. I think their season is going to end the way that it's a loss in Seattle, but that's a different story. I
Don't be
think
such a
Alex.
pessimist. Why are you so
I'm
pessimist?
being a realist. We'll get into it after we
Whatever.
but I think that you
You should
would
be so
prefer
lucky to
Seattle.
still be in this position.
I'm pumped. Don't get me wrong. I'm absolutely pumped. But I think you're wanting Seattle to lose so that
Yeah,
your tagline comes true,
I need a
and you
coach
guys
like
can grab Dan
ASAP.
Quinn
I need a
sooner
coach
rather than
ASAP.
later.
ASAP because
But
if I don't even know. The
like
only
Todd
better
Bowles,
the only better scenario, I do like Todd Bowles, but I feel like Dan Quinn is the fit here. But the only thing that I like better is the possibility of, because John Fox leaving, is John Fox coming with Peyton, and Peyton being the quarterback and the offensive coordinator so that we can pay him extra.
stop it.
How awesome would that be
Stop it.
if we got to pay him as a player and then as an offensive coordinator and put whatever we wanted around him, make him the highest paid offensive coordinator in the league, gave him $1 million base salary? Imagine the team. Just saying.
Stop it. All right, let's dive into the games then and get out of fantasy land for both of us here. We'll go position by position. It's only 2 games, 4 teams, so at each position and rattle through everybody and what we think will happen here. So I'll be on DraftKings here, giving you this from there. Actually, Alex will be on DraftKings.
I will be
Let
under.
me have both sites. But as I log in there, let's look at the most expensive one on DraftKings. You realize here Tom Brady 8,500 is the most expensive going up against Indy?
Do I like him as the most expensive?
No, are you surprised he's the most expensive?
No, not the way that Luck's receivers have been playing, not the way that Russell Wilson is so volatile just week to week, and the fact that Rodgers is playing against that Seattle defense. He has the best matchup on paper, so I do understand the fact that he is the most expensive. I feel like he's the safest, and that's why he's the most expensive this week.
So on FanDuel, he is 9,100, $100 cheaper than Luck. So what's going on there? That's interesting, seeing the difference between the two sites. So he's valued at, Rodgers and Brady are all within $100 of each other on FanDuel. So
Right.
they're all seen as similar values there. But Brady, $300 more expensive than Luck on. I'd have to agree with you, right? He's got probably, even though on the DraftKings ranking here it says, opponent rank is 8th. So apparently Indy is 8th against QBs. I don't quite believe that. Other than Vontae Davis, who's really stepped up secondary. Other than last week against Peyton, who was playing with a torn quad, right? How has their secondary been all year? Pretty outside of Davis, right?
Not good at all.
And I don't know. Up 8,500. Are you paying up for Brady this week then?
I don't think so. But, I don't really necessarily feel like I'm going safety this week for, as much safety, just because these prices are so weird this week, and we'll get to it. But one of the biggest things about this week is that the minimum price isn't $3,000 this week on DraftKings. They dropped it to $2,000 just so you could squeeze a lineup together. That's how, weird this week is with, certain players that are just
It is
playing.
strange.
It almost feels like with
Very
Seattle, there's no real dependable guys. You never know who's getting the ball in New England. The Colts, without really Reggie Wayne really stepping up this year, it's Luck and Heron and Hilton, but Hilton's got Revis, so that's a tough one. And then the Packers, you don't know what's going to happen because they're playing the Seahawks. These are really tough. This is a really tough week.
So let's again, we'll stick position by position. So let's talk about Brady a little bit. What are you expecting out of him? Last week I touched on it in the show, right? I expect him to have the highest volume of the weekend because of that matchup. It's a little different this week. The past two times that the Pats have played the Colts, dominated the run, right? I think earlier this season, Jonas Gray had like 37 carries against them.
Yeah.
You think they're going to stick with that formula, or are they going to at least try and throw the ball, 30 times this weekend? What are we looking at?
They're going to keep throwing the ball because I think Belichick tricked himself into not having a running game during the playoffs. As we saw last week, they looked so bad on the ground. I mean, I didn't get to see the whole game. I was still flying back. But from what I saw, they didn't even look like they were trying to run the ball. So
No, they weren't.
I feel like
And they couldn't. They had like 10 yards on 8 carries to start the game. And exactly why I said last week I expected all that volume because, Baltimore was the number 1 rush D in the league. So it just
right.
made
And from
pass.
going from Baltimore to the Colts, like it's obviously a much different run defense, different defenses, a completely different look, and I'm sure it'll allow the Patriots to be more balanced. But A, I'm not guessing who's getting the runs, and B, I just don't see them running the ball more than 30, like, a lot. I just still see it. Brady's kind of this. I feel like this is one of Brady's last years, and Belichick is going to want him to win it by like himself. Like he wants this to be his Super Bowl, if that makes sense.
Okay, I can see that.
They're gonna lean more on him while they have him because once he's gone, he's gone.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so you're expecting what out of Brady this weekend then? In terms of, give me some numbers.
At least 300, at least 2 touchdowns, could possibly be 4. I mean, he's gonna have a good week.
Okay.
We're not debating that at all. But I don't know if he's gonna have the best week of quarterback from a statistic standpoint.
Oh, I don't know if I'm really thinking of Brady getting 303 or 4 TDs. I'm more conservative. I think he'll get 225 to 200, at least 225 passing yards, maybe 2 TDs. His numbers are going to take a dip back from last week because the secondary, as not great as it may be, it's not as bad as Baltimore's was, almost the worst in the league, if not the worst. So I think his numbers take a step back, but he's still Tom Brady. He's get you some numbers. I don't think he's the top performing quarterback of the week. My pick for that would be Luck.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Who's 8,200 DraftKings and 9,200 on FanDuel. So tell me then, I'll let you say first, why do you think Luck is going to be number 1 and number 2? Give me some estimates that you have for him.
I think he's going to be the best quarterback this week because I think the Pats-Colts game is going to be the high-scoring game, and your game with the Seahawks is not really going to be that high-scoring. I'm not saying it's going to be one of those like 13-7 games, but I feel like Indy New England is going to be a shootout because New England's going to get off to a lead or at least have a lead, and it's going to force Luck to throw the ball a lot. And he's just we saw what he did last year in the what was it, the Bengals game? I don't remember who they played. He lit it up when they were down, and they wound up winning that game. But he was lighting it up when he needed to, and that's the kind of quarterback that he is. He's shown toughness this whole playoffs. Like his receivers are dropping balls left and right, but he is still putting up numbers. So yeah. I just feel like he's got to have a big game if they have any chance.
The thing is, he has to put up those numbers, though, right? I mean, he's got no semblance of a running game. He's been, over the past couple, very conservative with the ball, right? We've seen Boom Herron come out of nowhere with, over the past 2 weeks, over 20 catches, 25 catches.
What a stud.
He's being super, super conservative.
Because his receivers aren't catching anything.
No, I'm not blaming. I'm just saying he's being super conservative. So
I don't feel like it's him.
They're going to need again this week.
I don't think it's him being conservative. More so that it's them dropping the ball, and he's kind of left with that. And it's more. It's not that it's conservative and safe, but it's more of this is how I'm going to get yards because my receivers can't catch the ball. I might as well give it to Heron and let him run a bunch for some yardage and then make it easier for my receivers to get less yardage or easier catches. That makes sense.
And the matchup doesn't get any easier for his wideouts because they've got Revis and Browner out there who are very good in their own right. I think T. will get his targets just like he always does, kind of a pseudo matchup-proof guy. I mean, he'll get his targets, but he won't have blow-up day like he did a couple of times against the Texans over the past couple of years. But I agree with you. I think Luck has the biggest day of the weekend, but I really think it's because he has to, right? I think, like we said, Brady will be able to rely on the run game a little bit. Luck won't. And then let's get into
Luck's running game. Luck's running game is throwing the ball to Heron, so that's fine. That's perfect.
In a PPR, yeah.
And not even. I mean, we'll get to Heron. Heron is a must-play. Luck just gets all of those extra points because the only running game they have is screen passes to Heron. That's it. They can't run the ball. Tipton's okay, and we talked about this after I got off when I got to the airport. I like Tipton.
All right, let's jump to Russell Wilson then, since we're sticking on these positions. 8,900 in FanDuel, 8,000 in DraftKings. What are you expecting out of him this weekend against that Green Bay secondary?
I feel like this isn't his week. I feel like if you're going to play him and they make it through, you might want to definitely consider him for the Super Bowl because their defense will probably stifle either the Patriots or the Colts. But I just personally feel that Marshawn didn't really get it going last week. It's the playoffs. He's getting it going this week, and you don't know what's going to happen with Russell. If the Packers aren't able to score, hand the ball to Marshawn Lynch. He's going to have over 100, a touchdown or two. Marshawn will take touchdowns away from Russell, even if he's able to run the ball, throw the ball. I can't justify $8,000 for the volatility of the way Russell Wilson plays.
So I'll say that Russell Wilson, I'm going to estimate that he has at least 50 yards scrambling on this weekend. I know that the Packers usually struggle with mobile quarterbacks because their rushers get up the field, get behind the quarterback, and someone like Wilson will recognize that and take off, right? But passing the ball, I don't think he's going to have another 300-yard day like he did several weeks ago. What was it against Arizona? I just brought it up, 339 yards passing. You're not going to see that here. Like you said, they're going to be able to rely on Lynch. We'll get into him in a little bit. But I think that, like you said as well, if they get the lead and it's come fourth quarter, you can essentially remove Wilson from the game and they're just going to hand it off nonstop. At 8,000, I don't using him in a cash game. GPP, sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'm using him in a cash game just because, like you said, there's always the chance he can get that rushing touchdown or he only throws for 200 yards and one passing touchdown. It can still get the job done for them to win the game,
but
to
not
help
for
you out in fantasy. So I agree with you 100% there. I'll probably fade him in cash games, but you never know. Like I said, I believe he'll be able to escape all day, and I could see him if things get out of hand and the score actually rises up. I could see him having 100 rushing yards again. So that's why I say maybe GPP, but. For cash game, I think his floor is too low for a cash game.
I was gonna say 80 was like a floor for him rushing the ball. I just don't think he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna throw the ball very well.
Right. Well, okay. We're
especially
right
without
there.
Richardson. Especially without Richardson, like. I mean, he burned both of us last week, but we won't get into that.
Let's not talk about that AC.
I mean, the man tore his AC. Not his fault.
Hey.
It sucks.
Aaron Rodgers, then 7,800 in DraftKings. He is 9,100 in FanDuel. He's got the toughest matchup of the weekend, in my opinion. Week 1 of the season. Let me see if I can bring up his really quickly. Week 1 of the season, he threw for 189 yards, 1 touchdown, and a pick. So he didn't do much. He didn't rush at all. He's not going to rush at all, right? His calf is torn. Nothing's going to happen there. But what we have to look at is that offensive line, first week in Seattle, had a rookie starter, first game with Aaron Rodgers, first snaps with Aaron Rodgers. So it was completely than it is now because that same center is there, 17 games under their belts now together. So they have a bit of a chemistry. They know how to work now, whether it's they can hear each other or not. So I think it's going to be a little bit different. I think Rodgers is going to be able to throw for more than week one, and I think he's going to have to, obviously. But I don't know if you're going to see 300 yards and 3 touchdowns out of him just because of, again, the Legion of Boom coming out and stuffing the big receivers, right? Are you in agreement on that?
Yeah, I think here's my take on it. I think if he had a healthy calf, even without rushing, I don't really even think of Rodgers when I think of playing him in fantasy. I don't really care about the rushing. The rushing is just a bonus. He's not one of those guys that I depend on for rushing. I depend on him for his arm. And with no health, with not having that healthy calf, I'm scared to play him at 78. If he was totally healthy at 78, even going against Seattle, I think I would still take him. But all of these quarterbacks are so closely priced. The only deal breaker for me with Rodgers is the fact that that calf is healthy and he's not going to be able to get away from the blitz. If he was able to get away from the blitz, regardless of running, if he was able to get away from the blitz, I think he could do enough to beat the Seahawks secondary for a good fantasy day. I'm not necessarily going to say he would beat the Seahawks, but he would be able to do enough to be of value at that price. I just don't see it without the healthy calf.
I absolutely agree 100%. He's not going to be able to escape. They're going to have 5 sacks on him.
I mean, we saw that last week. He couldn't. At times, it just looked like he just couldn't run away. He can't. Normal situations where he would run away and be fine and complete a 50-yard pass were sacks last week. That's absolutely a big problem heading into Seattle, especially in Seattle.
Yep. I agree with you, and so I'll probably fade Rodgers completely this week in both cash games and GPP. I think Luck more than likely in cash games, and I'll probably throw some Russell Wilson in there in my GPPs.
I dig it.
So that's it for the starting QBs anyway. Let's run to the running backs. And up top on Kings, we've got Marshawn Lynch, 7,600 this week on DraftKings, 8,600 on FanDuel, so he's the clear favorite on both sites. And I think he has to be, right? You kind of touched on him. I think he's going for over 100 yards against the Packers. Our run D hasn't been great this year. It got better. Clay moved inside, but it's still not great. And he didn't have a great game last weekend. You're going to see him come back, I think. He's had, only, 14 carries and 10 carries in his last 3 games. I mean, we're going to see him carry the ball more this game. Oh, yeah. And you're gonna get your value out of that 7,600. Especially he's been catching balls this season, which was something he's done. He caught 3 last week, 3 against St. Louis in week 17. So they're getting him involved there. I think he's the top price quarterback of the weekend, and I think it's fair value. What do you think?
I love it this week. Man's gonna eat his Skittles this week. Before last week, he had touchdowns in 3 consecutive weeks. One in the week 16, he had 2. You're not keeping him out of the end zone. This is the best matchup for a running back of all of the running backs this week, other than New England running backs against Indy. But I don't even want to talk about them. So as far as the 3 real starting running backs left go, he has the best matchup because you guys are better against the pass than the run, and Marshawn is just going to light it up, I think, this week. I see 100 yards, a touchdown, easy, and then we'll see what else.
Yep, I agree. I think he's a must-play in all formats this week.
Even if he doesn't hit value this week, he's still going to help you win money in cash games. because he's still going to put up close to 20, if not way more than that, at least on DraftKings.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like I said, he's probably going to be in all of my lineups. So we'll move on. Obviously, consensus pick there for Lynch. Lacey, looking at him, I'd say GPP only because, and I only because we saw what Lacey did and the Packers O-line did against Detroit in Week 17, and we ran the ball down their throats. Second in the league, ran the ball down their throats. I really think they try to establish the run early on, but that's not saying that we're going to, right? So moving on, if we can't establish the run, McCarthy loves to switch the pass quickly. If Rodgers feels pressure a lot, he may start dumping it off. That may make Lacey a prime target to, have a Boom Herron kind of day, not 10 catches, but 5 or 6 catches, 60 yards or so, getting you some value. Low ceiling though, very low ceiling, or low floor, excuse me. I just see him as GPP only. I'm not going to touch him in games. How about you?
You can't. I mean, I love Lacey. He's a very tough runner. He can break some big runs, even though he's so big. But I mean, the floor going against the Seattle rush defense is too low for a cash game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he could have a good game, and it'll help Rodgers, and maybe you guys will win the game. But I'm not putting my money into that. I would like to see it because then I get Dan Quinn as my head coach sooner rather than waiting till after the Super Bowl. But I mean, I don't see it. Like, I would like to. I could see him getting one of those where he catches the ball and he runs 47 yards in a touchdown because nobody can tackle him because he's that big, and when he gets going north-south, that's a tough man to take down. And especially in the matchup where, like, him and Marshawn are, I'm not going to say the same running back, but they're very similar. And I feel like it's kind of going to be Lacey kind of wanting to prove that he is as good, if not better, than Lynch, but the difference is the fact that the Seahawks defense versus the Packers defense is no contest in terms of run defense.
All right. Boom Herron, we touched on him before. I don't know if we want to really dive too deep into him here. Not expecting, just to recap, not expecting a lot of rushing or rushing yards from him. More
who cares?
Pseudo receiver.
Who cares?
And get you those catches. He has 18 over the past 2 weeks. 18 catches for back. Unbelievable. So I think that's about it. We'll leave it at that. I think he's also going to be in both. And
you have to play him. He's the only like, there's 3 starting running backs that are going to get touches this week. He's the cheapest and he's the best PPR play of all of them. Yep. He is a must play. I don't care. You have to put him in your lineup.
5,900 in DraftKings.
The only thing that
7,000 in FanDuel.
The only thing that scares me is when he went down with that shoulder early in the game last week. And remember, I was saying I had Tipton in my lineup originally last week, and then you were like, "Stop being an idiot, put Herron on it." I was like, fine. But like when he went down, and I was thinking, "Ooh, watch Tipton for next week. He's gonna be." We put a lineup together with Tipton, just in case Herron gets hurt.
If you want a super risky lineup, you can throw Tipton
in your lineup for sure. You have to bank on
that Herron. You're basically hoping Herron gets injured. 100 for Tipton. I mean, you got value everywhere else. So the New England rushing game, I don't want to talk about. I think basically it's, if you want to play it, it's a GPP only, and you got to pay attention to who's starting. And once you find out who's starting, even then you've got to question your pick. I mean, you go Shane Vereen if you want some catches out of the backfield.
Yep.
You don't know who's going to start.
Jared Blunt, 3 rushes for 1 yard. And he's I don't understand why he's so expensive though. Still, that doesn't make sense.
Well, we don't know what's happening, but I'm not going to give him. So let's just move. Let's move right over to wide receivers, and let's just touch on groups of wide receivers here. For the Packers side, they're the first team up. We've got Cobb at 7,700 on DraftKings. He at 8,800 on FanDuel. Jordy, 76 on DraftKings, 89 on FanDuel, and Devontae Adams, 40 on DraftKings, and 6,000 on FanDuel. So RotoWorld put out a report today. They figure Adams is going to take the Jarrett Boykin role of Week 1, who they basically sat him out there against Richard Sherman because Sherman doesn't, switch sides of the field, and said, okay, we're going to sacrifice one receiver and hope to exploit a matchup elsewhere. I don't know how much we on that. In Week 1, again, in Week 1 they did it with Boykin. Cobb ended up going for 6 for 58 and a touchdown. Jordy ended up with, let me pull it up,
he was
9
like 5
for 83.
Yeah.
9 for 83. So that's basically what they did Week 1. But I think for now, I think they've got to send multiple people at Sherman, and I think that means mixing up everything else. I think Cobb and Nelson are both going to be. They'll both get you decent value. I don't know if they'll hit you 3x. They might hit numbers similar to what we had in Week 1. But against that pass defense, you're not just playing Richard Sherman. You're playing Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas. I mean, these guys hit you. They don't allow a lot of yards after the catch. You basically catch the ball and you're hit within 2 steps. So any Packers receiver, I think this is a risk regardless of who you're choosing. So I'll probably, if I'm going at any of them in a cash game, it's probably Jordy, just because number 1 all year. But I wouldn't hate you for doing Cobb, but either way, I'm not going to put them in all of my cash lineups this weekend.
Yeah, if I had to pick one or the other, I'm going with Cobb more so in a cash game because I don't think at any point he's going to line up against Sherman because he's more of like line up in the slot, line up in the backfield. That's not really Sherman's area. So he's the least likely to see Sherman at all during the game. And he's more of the PPR threat. Like Jordy could break off some big plays and have a great game. But he needs to hit those plays from Rodgers, who doesn't really look like himself right now. Whereas Cobb, with Rodgers not really looking that good, last week he had, 8 for 124, 128, or 120. I don't remember what the numbers were, but I played him, and it was great. Because when Rodgers doesn't have that extra time to throw the ball or that extra power off his leg to hit Jordy like he likes to, he's got to look at Cobb shorter because those are the passes he knows he can complete. And
something else about Cobb is he'll more than likely get carries out of the backfield. They like using him there. If the running game is stalling a little bit, they tend to put him in there to kind of shake things up. So he's got a little bit of a weapon out of the backfield as well. Just extra fodder for whoever wants to play him this weekend. So let's then. 6,200 on FanDuel. Jermaine Kearse, 800 on DraftKings, and 5,800 on FanDuel. If you're really crazy, Ricardo Lockett, 2,300 on DraftKings, 48 on FanDuel. I don't know if I'm really.
It's his week.
Ricardo Lockett.
It's his week, man. It's gonna happen.
Sure.
It's my Josh Hill pick of the week.
That's your pick of the week, Ricardo Lockett?
No, that's my Josh Hill pick of the week. That is the. Are you kidding me? It's gonna happen because it's just gonna happen.
I hear you. So, are you considering rostering Baldwin or Kearse this week?
Kearse. Here's why. No Richardson. I don't want to pay for Baldwin because he blocks so often. But just the way because I made a lineup earlier, just the way my lineup is constructed, the only way that I could fit it together was having Kearse there, and I know I don't think he might not hit value, but I know he's getting targets because without Richardson, those targets are most likely going to go to him. I just see him having one of those 3 for 80, 4 for 60 type of days, maybe gets in the end zone. I'd put him at about a 40% chance of getting in the end zone plus the catches and yards.
So
I'm willing to take that.
He caught a lot of deep passes, right? All 3 of his catches were pretty deep. I think 60-plus yards or 50-plus yards. The Packers tend to give up at least 2, impact plays a game. there's almost always some sort of safety miscommunication, which allows a receiver to get available over the top. I could see Curse doing it again this week. I don't want to, but I could see it. So I'll probably stick with him in.
I just think
any Seahawks receiver only. I don't think I'm cashing any of them.
Yeah, I think you can. I think you guys are going to be able to at least contain Baldwin. So I feel like Curse is going to be the man that gets free. Because somebody has to get free on this offense. I mean, they're not going to have 0 passing yards. Like, that's not happening. Like, somebody's going to have to catch the ball.
Right. All right, so let's switch over to Indy and New England. We'll look at Indy first. We mentioned T.Y. Hilton before, $7K on draft, and I'm in the wrong game here. He is 8,200 on FanDuel. He's going to get his targets, but the question is, what will he do with them? I'm guessing Revis will shadow him everywhere. They'll likely put Browner on Moncrief or Dwayne.
I'm thinking Wayne. I love Moncrief this week.
Even in a cash game, he's sitting at 3,500 on DraftKings.
You want to know why?
5,300 on FanDuel. Tell me.
You want to know why? 8 targets last week. Second most targeted receiver for Indy, including tight ends.
Okay. I love.
I think it's coming together. It came together the week before with the Bengals. They didn't quite hit it last week against the Broncos because they didn't really need to. They need that this week, and it's going to happen.
And they'll have to, Luck's going to have to avoid Revis for the most part, right? I mean, they're going to get their penalties and whatnot thrown against them, but
then again,
they have to go intermediate routes, and Moncrief's going to be that guy.
Right, but then again, if Flacco had the balls to throw at Revis and succeed, I think Luck's going to have the same moxie this week.
Dude, Flacco got exposed for what he is. He throws the deep ball, and his receivers either go up and get it or they draw penalties.
He's so bad. He's so bad. The end. He sucks.
So, all right. So that's it for Indy. We're not really going to talk too much about their receivers.
Moncrief.
They're tough. We like Moncrief this week, but let's switch to New England then. And Edelman, LaFell, Amendola. Amendola's a little nutty.
They're all so annoying.
What do we think this week? I mean, I think Edelman lining up inside will be another nice play on DraftKings. Taking advantage of that PPR. LaFell will probably match up with Davis, right?
Yeah, that doesn't make. I hate that because he's the third most talented pass catcher, and he's just taking over their best cornerback. Like, they should just put Vontae on Gronk. Like, real talk. Like, if I was coaching, Vontae would be on Gronk.
Who knows? Maybe they do something like that. I mean, we've seen DBs on Gronk before, right? I haven't seen anything come out in terms of who Davis is going to cover, but I imagine he stays outside on LaFell or shadows Edelman on. Does he shadow? No, he stays on one side of the field for most of the time, I believe.
On the right side.
Yeah, so he'll take whoever's
those
on that side, which is
imagine those two on the same defense. First, Sherman on here, Vontae here.
Oh,
Sherman
God.
and Vontae.
Stop it.
No one would complete passes. Both halves of the field.
Out of those 3 receivers, who do you like the most?
From I know he's going to get the ball, and he's mediumly priced, LaFell. Brady's not going to shy away from throwing the ball anywhere. I think Edelman's price at 72 scares me a little bit too much. And I'm never putting money on Amendola. So if I'm taking any of these guys, it's LaFell.
Okay. Like I said, I think the volume in Brady's dips quite a bit, and that, I think, affects all of their receivers greatly. I think receiver is going to be a tough play this week. You'd see the most value out of Green Bay because they're probably going to be playing from behind. You'll also see it out of Indy, but I think New England and Seattle receivers are are fades in cash games this week for sure. But we did say someone's going to have to catch the ball, right? They're not going to have 0 passing yards.
Gronk.
So we're going to have to move to the tight ends here, and Gronk is far and away the most expensive this week. Last week he kind of proved it. He was the most expensive, but he was worth it.
You talked me out of him so badly. I was so upset.
I talked you out of him?
Oh, yeah. You were like, yeah, they're going to have the safety shadow, and they're also going to have C.J. Mosley on him at all times. Yeah.
Oh,
what did he do? Wait. I want you to read me the stat line so you feel bad about
7 for 101, 108 and a touchdown.
Yeah.
It was a stud.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That didn't affect you all that much.
Yeah, it did. If I played him, I probably would have won. Put it that way.
You won one of your lineups.
2 out of 5. I won 2 out of 5. It doesn't count as a win. It's a failure.
So is he? I think he's another kind of must play this week. I think nothing's changed.
That matchup, they're so bad against the tight end. They're so, who's gonna cover him? DeQuell Jackson? Nah.
So, is there any point in talking about any other tight end, or should we just end it and say play Gronk?
I mean, we kind of have to because the way that receiver skill position players are, I know you hate this, but I'm probably going to play 2 tight ends this week because you kind of have to.
Play who?
2 tight ends.
Oh, 2 tight ends?
Because
your second one, Fleener?
Might have to. No, I think I would be a little bit more comfortable with Allen this week than Fleener because since Allen's kind of been healthier, Fleener hasn't hit double digits the past 2 games, which is kind of annoying because I played Fleener last week. But, I would probably, just to save money so you can get the players that you want, Tim Wright's not a bad play. Even with Gronk having a big day, he could still get a red zone target. It can happen. It really, I don't know why you're looking at me like that. They've had touchdowns in the same game.
He played 3 snaps last week.
Okay, but if they all right, fine. Never mind on Tim Wright. But maybe one of those idiot tight ends for the Seahawks that could just get one of those 60-yard catch touchdowns that always happen. That's not a terrible. That's what I'm saying. There are options at tight end that you can just throw in at a punt play. Listen, at a punt play at 2,000, you need 6 points. You need 2 catches for 40 yards, 3 catches for 30 yards. Or a catch for a yard and a touchdown, and you're way above value. So just take one of those guys.
I agree with you.
Throw them in your lineup and get the rest of your lineup so much better.
I like the 2 tight end system. I agree with you on that.
Just for this week. I normally am not a fan, but for this week,
absolutely right. We've argued about that. Neither of us like going 2 tight ends, even though it seems almost every week I throw it up in there with 2 tight ends. But with Fleener, I think Fleener might have the better day just because they're going to have to throw they're going to have to throw those intermediate routes, and Allen seems like more of the close route guy, short routes. That's why he's touchdown dependent too. I think Fleener might have the better day there. So if I'm playing
Robot. Sorry, Fleener might have the better day because he's going to get more targets. Got it. Can't hear you.
All right.
There you go.
So, on defense, then, give me one. I mean, all I want to give me which defense is going to be the highest scoring this week.
I have no idea. Probably the Seahawks.
I think Seattle, and I think it's not because of their sack totals. I think if you want to take a risk, you go with the pass. You're hoping for a return touchdown. But I think if there are no defensive touchdowns this week, I think the Seahawks are number 1. If there are defense this week, I think the Pats are your number 1 defense. So either one of those. I'm not going to touch the Packers. I'm not going to touch the Colts.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about Richard Rodgers this week? Getting 3 catches for 30 yards. Or Quarless?
I think Quarless has, for some reason, stuck there, and he's kind of been their number 1 tight end, if you can say they have a number 1 tight end.
You can, but go ahead. Lost you.
He just plays more snaps than Richard Rodgers. So for pure targets, look at Corliss. But if you're looking for higher upside, Rodgers, because his target could be a 40-yard touchdown, where he could have 3 catches for 15.
Yep.
That's my take on them. That does it for us, though, and since this was kind of unannounced and unadvertised, we have nobody really watching or chatting it up, so we have
no questions.
But we are always there on Twitter, at MN Milano, at Alex Hanowitz. Hit us if you guys ever have questions. Let us know what you have, and we'll try to answer as quickly as we can. That's it for us for this week. Like we said, not for the off season. We're going to do a lot of stuff. Oh, Alex has something. Go ahead.
If you guys have enough comment questions, like through Twitter and through just commenting on the YouTube page, which we like seeing the comments, maybe we'll do like a 15-minute show on Thursday. If you guys have enough comments before then, just a quick little
Thursday,
show.
Friday, or Saturday, depending on if and when we get comments. I'll be up for another show for sure.
Not Saturday. I'm going to the Michigan State Maryland game. Let's go.
Oh
yeah. The Terps, baby.
All right, man. Well, again, thank you guys very much for watching. Appreciate it. Reach out to us, follow us, subscribe everywhere, and we'll catch you guys next time. Good luck this weekend. Go Pack!